Alright, so today in this video we're going to talk about the rate of change and what is the rate of change and what does it mean in a practical sense. Okay. Alright, so the rate of change is the way in which the rate of change is the way in which one variable changes with respect to another variable. Okay, being measured or being studied. For example, right? If we said something like, for example, like if we said something like, the car drove, um, the car drove 50 miles in 2 hours, right? Then we would say that, okay, so if the car drove 50 miles in 2 hours, right, then we know that the car drove 25 miles in 1 hour, right? What is the variable being measured? Okay, well, the first variable is time, right? Right? The hour is time, right? In hours, right? And the thing that's being changed is miles. And how do we know that? How do we know that's true, right? Because we know that, well, in 1 hour, we drove 25 miles. In 2 hours, we drove 50 miles. In 3 hours, we drove. If we did a little chart, right, and we were to say, okay, I'm gonna draw a little chart. I'm gonna say, right? Let me not use. Okay, let me just use this. Right. So if we said you drove 0 miles, right? 0 hours, right? Zero. This is hours, and this is miles, right? If we drove 0 hours, we would get 0 miles, right? If we did 1 hour, it's 25. If we did 2, it's 50. If we did 3, it's 75. If we did 4, it's 100, right? We know that as the hours increase, right, the number of miles increase, right? So hours is one variable, right? Because the variable is time. This variable is time, right? And the other variable is miles, which is the speed, right? Like how many times that you drove, right? So, right, we know, right, that every time that we drove 1 hour, we get an increase in 25, right? So we're saying that the change, right? We denote this by using a symbol called. This means the change of, right? So we say, right, time is the independent variable. Right? And miles is the dependent variable. Dependent variable means that what independent variable means that is that the thing it works independently of itself. Like it doesn't work independently of anything else. The dependent variable means that it changes with respect to the independent variable. So the miles change with respect to time, right? So what we say in mathematics is that we say, well, the change of y over the change of x means that we're talking about the change of miles is dependent on the change of time, right? Which is 25 over 1 in this example, right? Let's use another example. Say I get paid, right? I get paid $200, right? Every hour, right? $200 every hour, right? The dollars is the dependent variable. How much I get paid is a dependent variable because it's changing with respect to time, right? The time is the independent variable. Time is the independent variable. So what we say is, right, the dependent variable is y, and the independent variable is x, right? So we say the change of y over the change of x is equal to 200 over 1, right? And we can show this on like a graph by saying that, okay, when it's if this is time, right, and this is how much I get paid, this is dollars, right, then I can show and say $0 is $0, right? When it's 0 hours, I get $0. When it's 1 hour, I get 200. When it's 2 hours, I get 400. When it's 3 hours, I get 600. When it's 4 hours, I get 800. You see what I'm saying? So we can show this, and we can also show this on a graph, but I'm not going to show that for that point. The point is just try to understand that rate of change means that is when, like, the y or whatever the dependent variable is changing with respect to the independent variable, right? I'm using time because usually things change with respect to time, so I'm using time as an example. Okay, another example. Let's say I don't know, the amount of the amount of like you don't need to really need to know these two, really, honestly. If you use the third example, the third would be something like the amount of products sold, right? So say I sold 5,000 products. I sold 5,000 iPhones, right? In in I don't know, in 5 days, right? Then I know that, okay, I sold 1,000 iPhones in one day. So if I sold 1,000 iPhones in one day, then I know, okay, well, the iPhone is a dependent variable, right? And the time is a dependent. Sorry, the iPhones is dependent and the day is the independent, right? So we do time and we do iPhones, right? So we say, okay, well, in 0 time is 0 iPhones, and 1 is 1,000, and 2 is 2,000, and 3 is 3,000, and 4 is 4,000, and 5 is 5,000, right? So time in this case is the independent variable, right? And iPhones is a dependent variable, right? And so when we say, well, what is the rate of change? Well, the rate of change is the rate of change in this example would be the change of y over the change of x, which is equal to, right, 1,000 over 1. That's the rate of change because every time that we increase time by 1, we get an increase in 1,000. Every time that we increase by 1, we get an increase in 25 miles, right? Every time that we get an increase here in 1, hour, we get $200, right? So this is what the rate of change means. That's what the rate of change means. This is what the rate of change means. Where's the other one? Rate of change, rate of change, rate of change. Okay? That's it. So basically, rate of change just means it's the way that one variable changes with respect to another variable. Usually, in a practical sense, the independent variable is time, usually, because many things change through time. So usually, it's through time. Okay? So that's it. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye-bye.